Our last speaker, our last guest to speak today is Mr. Jim Kreuser. He is our Kenosha County Executive. We're so delighted to have him with us today as well because in being elected in 2008 in a special election, he is also a former Wisconsin Assembly representative from the 64th District and the former minority leader from 2003 to 2008, which probably led to some of those discussions that Sam referenced and that Van had made comment about working together across aisles. This was, of course, in 2003 to 2008, before he was elected to serve Kenosha County. I give you our County Exec, Jim Kreuser.
Thank you, Sandy, for teaching for 38 years and educating our children. And Shannon, congratulations on your new position, and thank you for inviting me here today. It is a pleasure to be here today. How are you all doing? Good. I hope I'm not standing between you and the meal, because don't put them on yet. No. I just want to say thank you, and it is true, I am a recovering legislator. And when I was elected in 2008, I moved on to a nonpartisan office. I have an April election as opposed to a fall election like these folks. And I said, this is the business of Kenosha County, and I'm going to move forward. And I've always worked with the other side, and I've been up in Van's office, talked to him all the time. His staff welcomes me every time I call. We have our cell numbers. He gets back to us all the time. We work together. We circle the wagons. And it's been that way, and I remember Samantha when she was the staffer for Clyde Porter.
We're here now.
And always, one. My barber said were you painting the ceiling, Jim? I said, no. And he said, well, look at the top of your head. But no, Samantha Kirkman, awesome job up there. She has a running list on her phone of things for Kenosha County. When it comes to Kenosha County, it's called the Kreuser list. We have a running list of a dozen or two items that we just want to keep in the hopper as things move along. And this team right here, they circle the wagons for Kenosha County and make Kenosha County government better and help our park system and our roads, and we maximize the efforts we can do in Madison. So I just want to publicly thank both of you very much for your service. I want to thank all of you for your service and your volunteering service, and also the profound impact you've had on your children and probably your grandchildren. As I grew up, my parents spent a lot of time with me. My grandparents had a profound impact on me. And I just want to thank you all for that, because the generations before, some of their grandparents didn't have the longevity this generation did. And they passed on a lot. I heard an ad on the radio the other day, and it was a help wanted ad. And they said, we're looking for workers who have the courtesy of their grandmother and the work ethic of their grandfather. And I think that's true of almost everybody. That if we could go back to those ethics and values and morals, we'd be a lot better off. But there's hope. There's hope. I want to thank you for any who served in the armed services, any of your families, past or present, and especially remember those who had paid the ultimate sacrifice. We serve only because we don't have tyranny in this country, and people don't know what that is. I heard a youngster who was 14, one of my years ago in my house, say it was tyranny that their iPhone was taken away. Right? He almost had to peel me off the ceiling with a spatula. So then I said, well, let's just stop right there. Why don't you look up what tyranny is? You want to know what tyranny is? And we talked about World War II. And we talked about Hitler. We talked about those things. I said, that's not the appropriate word for that. And I probably jumped on a little too much, but I think that's what's needed. Pain and anguish that goes on. Sonny Tucker. You don't know that name. I know it well. He was an only son of Sanford and Alma Tucker, who were I call them Uncle Sanford and Aunt Alma. They were in Kenosha. He worked at the brass. That was their only son. was a cousin to my father. He's about a year older than my dad, who's 89 now. He was an Army Ranger. He was volunteered D-Day, June 6, 1944, Normandy. On France, day 2, he was killed along that 50-mile stretch of battleground. Upon embarking, Dwight Eisenhower then said, the eyes of the world are upon you. And that went to everybody who was on that landing, on every ship, of the peril that was before the world. His Purple Heart hung in his parents' house until they died, and now it hangs in our house. And that story gets passed on. And that's how you pass those stories on, of the history of family, direct, indirect, how important it is. So that was my dad's cousin, who was a year older. And I'm blessed that my parents are 89 and 85. I'm married now and have 2 boys. We're Eagle Scouts, graduated from Madison. One's working in a tech firm who I can't even tell you what he does. And the other one's going to be a chemical engineer. I can't carry his books. He's got a year to go, and they're both smarter than me, and everybody says they take after their mother. What a profound impact my parents have had on them, like you do on your children and grandchildren. We can't understate that. And that's not a volunteer role, it's just what you do. My dad is a World War II veteran and a life member of the VFW. And he chose the Army because he couldn't swim, right? All right? So he became a coxswain. You know what that is? You're driving a boat. So, you know, he went in and went through the process. You know, many of you in the service, you go to Fort Hood and then you get trained somewhere else. Hurry up and wait. You're sent around San Diego, work your way up the coast. At that point, they had to leave out of Washington State, and they deployed for the invasion of Japan. Now remember, a year earlier, Sonny Tucker died in Normandy. One of 9,000 that died, that let 100,000 go through, to slog through, to defeat Hitler. So the invasion was projected by many to have larger losses than Normandy. And as the troops mounted and started going to Japan, Harry Truman made a decision. And the bombs were dropped. And my dad showed up after the bombs dropped and was there at the surrender in the harbor with the flotilla of boats as they signed the unconditional surrender on the Missouri. What a sight that was. That's one of the best stories I've heard. So, by the way, yes, Harry Truman was the best president ever, by all accounts from my father and my family. And that's why we had a deep affection for veterans and veterans bills, and we worked on many when we were in the legislature together. I was honored a couple weeks ago on Memorial Day on the legislation that was passed 22 years ago to site a veteran cemetery in northwestern and southeastern Wisconsin. And it's the 20th anniversary of the groundbreaking. Governor Walker came down, Secretary of Veterans Affairs Scott goes and recognized that, and when you look upon that cemetery, if you haven't been there, take a drive through. It is the 5th busiest in the nation, and it is beautiful. It is beyond expectation that when you pass a bill and you see it become law, and then you see it 2 decades later, I am humbled by it. And it's the proudest bill I was ever able to pass in the state assembly. So that's where some of our background and roots are from, and I think we have tried to keep perspective on that, but listening to your stories help us invaluably also on these occasions, and it's kind of meaningful, especially when June 6th comes around, D-Day. I always you always think have different perspectives on different days of the year. I want to thank you for inviting me here today, and again, thank you for all your service and your volunteerism. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, thank you, thank you.